Hey. So, never fails. I just got to Atlanta. I'm not in Atlanta. Well, I'm in Atlanta, but I'm not stopping here. I'm just passing through. And as soon as I hit this, I think I'm on 285 or some shit. Standstill traffic, damaged cars. It's an accident. And when I say damaged cars, I'm talking about the regular people that are driving. Their cars look toe up. Like somebody done hit it. This is the only city I see this crap where it's just non-stop accidents. It's just ridiculous. So I've been sitting here probably about 10 minutes now. So I said, let me just take my break. So I pulled over and I'm gonna make the sweet and sour sweet and sour, what do you call this? Sweet and sour sesame shrimp. I just pour it all on there with a little butter. Excuse the bootleg going on, mess in the back. It's been a rough week, but so let me make multitask. So I'm gonna make the shrimp while I talk to you guys. Before my anxiety start to kick in, I feel it coming. It's trying to take over, but I said nope. I'm gonna feed my belly so that way I feel good. You know what I'm saying? I feel good while I'm watching these people stress out. So I like to wait. It's like standstill traffic. So I am due for a break, so it kind of worked out that way. All right, you might hear some noise in the background because I look a hot mess. It's sweaty. So I don't know. Let me see. Hold on. I don't know if you can see the traffic. If you can see it. Yeah. So that's what's going on out there. So how is everybody doing? So I'm gonna make me some sesame shrimp with a sandwich. I'll make a turkey sandwich. I was looking for some potatoes, but I realized I ran out of potatoes. So I'm just gonna usually have myself a little bit more. This is not the same shirt from yesterday. I have two or three green shirts. This is my favorite color, and teal. This is teal. This is my favorite color, like in household stuff, like if I do house decorum. I like a little splash of teal. It gives me life. Blue is not really my favorite color because blue is, I like things that look like the water, but blue remind me of the hospital, so I don't really like blue too much. You see what I'm saying? But teal is the closest thing to me to water without looking too hot. Oh, sorry. You know what? I'm gonna just get the stand. I was trying not to have to go look for the stand, but I think I'm gonna have to get the stand. Give me a second, y'all. Hold on. Sorry about that, y'all. I had planned to make the video this morning, but hold on. This is my little itty bitty stand. It's a mini tripod. I think it's called a tripod, right? I really need to get better at this video and stuff if I want to call myself a content creator. But I need to turn this air up. It's freaking hot in here. Because when you put the air fryer on, because right now the air fryer is on, it gets real hot. Okay. All right. Y'all be seeing my real life in real time. I don't be faking the funk. Which leads me to this video about personas. So I was reading my psychology book. This is sweet chili sauce. Sesame sauce. It gives the shrimp a little flavor. You feel me? Anyways, I was reading my psychology book last night before I took my test, just to brush up on what we was about to get quizzed on, and there's a psychologist named Carl Ewing, and he talks about personalities, right? But he was talking about something called the persona. So our mind is compartmentalized, right? We mostly deal with the average person. I won't say all. The average person deals with the conscious mind. And then you have the unconscious mind, the pre-conscious mind. And the ego, it keeps a buffer on all those things. It keeps a buffer so that you don't go into a deep unconscious mind, which is where all your repressed feelings, your trauma, good things be in the unconscious mind. Don't think the unconscious mind is all bad. But some people who are not in tune with the alignment of their unconscious as well as their conscious mind, their unconscious mind is kind of unhealthy, which is somewhat like where mental illness and stuff like that resides, right? Now, we have different levels of mental illness, so I'm not going to go into that. Today, we're just talking about the persona. When we come into this world, we have to, commune with other people, deal with other people, and culture teaches us how to. So you got people from all walks of life, all types of cultures. They have different ways of dealing with people. So like in some cultures, bowing your head is a sign of respect. Whereas in some cultures, it might be a sign of like disrespect, right? Or in the Muslim culture, y'all know I'm Muslim, women should not shake a man's hand. Like if you say hello, that's considered haram. People do it because you're in a culture of, American society. It's more Christian based. So shaking someone's hand is not considered rude. But if you was a female in an Islamic country and you go to shake some dude's hand, he's not going to shake your hand. You might be like, well, that's mean, that's rude, right? For example, in New York, they might put the money on the counter and go about their business. In the South, that's considered rude to put the money on the counter. They want the money in the hand. So all these things we're taught. So we as humans, we try to adapt to what we see and what we learn. But there is something called the individuation. If your individuation is it's healthy, you try to separate from the mother. When you are growing up as a child, you are taught to emulate your parents because you're learning the world. And then when you become a preteen, a teenager, you start to separate from the mother. You might go through what's called a rebellion stage. All of that is individuation. You are now becoming an individual. Here's the issue I have. Persona has now become the new way to be an individual. Persona is when you separate from your true self to deal with what's expected of you. So if you go to work, you might have to put on what's called the persona of work, which is the professional persona. Then you might go home and curse your kids out, right? So this person that you become at work may not be the same person when you get home. Or celebrities like Beyonce. She gets on stage, she puts on this big performance. She's the I think she calls herself Sasha Diva or something, Sasha, right? And then she gets home and she's like a little church mouse. You hear her on interviews. She's like, oh, I'm such a quiet, peaceful, calm, boring person. But then you see her on stage and she's booty naked, shaking her ass, and she's like, yeah, I'm Sasha Fierce. What you talking about, right? A whole different person. You're like, who are these people? So our mind creates what's called archetypes. I don't remember all the names. You got the hero, you got the mother figure, they call it the mother head, I think. You got the spiritual father, you got the villain. You got all these archetypes that we create in our mind. Some might call it demon possession because you might become the villain and people be like, dang, this person, when they put on that persona, they become a whole BITCH or a whole ASSS, right? But then when you see them maybe in another setting, they're super sweet. So you're like, well, which one is this? Which one are you? The sad part about it is a lot of people get lost in their persona and they somehow lose any levels of individuation. It's like they become like a chameleon to the world versus getting in tune with their true self. And how do you get in tune with your true self is understanding your real personal traits. Your personality traits are somewhat biological and somewhat based off of culture. So it's a little bit of both. You might have a specific type, and then when you break it down, you become traits. So you study yourself. You say, okay, what do I like? What do I dislike? Am I outspoken? Am I more quiet? Do I like a quiet setting when I'm having fun, or do I like, how you say it? Get it up and popping, right? So over the years, I thought I was an introvert. I have introvert traits. So when I get tired, like when I get tired of interacting, I do need that downtime to go inward and unwind, right? But my natural skill, my natural trait is I'm an extrovert. So all these years I was like, why was I thinking I'm an introvert? It's because I was trained by my father when I was growing up to be quiet. You know, kids shouldn't be seen, shouldn't be heard, they should only be seen, that type of thing. So when I went out in the real world, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. You see what I'm saying? And when you raise your children like that, where they can't be themselves, and we're all somewhat guilty of that. For example, if you have a child, this child may have manners, but they're just kind of soft-spoken, and you take them into a public setting and you're forcing them to speak to everybody. You know how you have those videos sometimes, the parents want to put the kid on a video and they're like, talk to the people, and the kid is like, get that camera out of my face, I don't want to talk. But you're forcing the kid to become a persona. Now the kid has to perform. Now the kid has to dance. Now the kid has to act like a clown because he has to entertain the parent. But it's not their true nature. They don't want to do it. So when your child tells you, hey, I don't want to do something, believe them. They don't want to do it. I'm not saying in all situations. I'm talking about when it comes to their personality. We're trained as adults over time in culture that we have to perform and become somebody else outside of who we are. If you notice on social media, people mostly click on views to see personas, not true characters. When growing up in my time, when YouTube first started, this is why y'all see me so real, because I come from the era where I was attracted to real YouTubers, real podcasters, where they sat, they talked, it was real talks. It wasn't no fluff. It wasn't no the latest fad conversations. Let's jump on the latest fad about what everybody else is talking about so we can get views and get money. And it's like there's no true content. I'm not talking about I'm not hating on nobody. This is not me hating and bashing anybody that's making content. I'm just saying, if you notice now the traffic is moving. Well, I'm making my shrimp, so I'm going to enjoy my little time off. This is what keeps my anxiety at bay, when I do a little bit of downtime to myself. So the content that we see nowadays, it's very fluffed. It's very grandiose. You know, you see the thumbnail, lose 5 pounds in 2 seconds. And this is like, lose 5 pounds in 2 seconds, really? That's what we're going to go with? So now you're like, well, let me just click on it to see how fake it is. So sometimes you're clicking on it with the critique in mind, like, this is bullshit, right? Next thing you know, you click on it and it's like, oh, it's some bullshit. You already knew it was going to be bullshit, but you just wanted to entertain yourself, because now we're somewhat impressed by personas. The problem with personas is you never find true happiness, because now your unconscious get locked into a box and it cannot reveal itself. This is why you see older people become happier as they get older, is because now they can become their real self. Now they can tell you how they really feel. Some of them be rude as hell, right? Them older people, but they're telling you what's really on their mind. And sometimes it'd be beneficial to you because it could be some good advice, but it may be wrapped a little harsh. I'm not saying being harsh is a good thing, but if that's who that person is in their core, that's just them being themselves. Now, if they're happy being harsh, that's them being themselves. Now, I'm not talking about if an older person becomes older and stays in their archetype. If they stay in their archetype, that means they're being under their persona. They're not being themselves. Does that make sense? So your whole goal in life is to individuation. I'm not saying become individual. Individuation, meaning you are complete with who you are as your true core self. That means your subconscious, your ego, and your unconscious are blended into one. They are all in unison. So when you have a thought on the conscious mind, the unconscious is not arguing with it. It's not like, no, I don't agree with it. That's sometimes why you have aggressive dreams, is because your subconscious mind, which is the frontal, so subconscious is in between. Conscious is up front. Subconscious is like the innate things that come to your mind, like your name, the things that you do regularly. That's your subconscious. You just do it without thinking, right? So those two are usually on the forefront. When you are not in tune with the unconscious, it sort of stirs up like negative feelings, like aggression, anger, hate. That's because the unconscious is locked and is not able to be its true self for whatever reason. There's so many reasons. We can name a list. But as I make videos, I would start to reveal more and more about what leads to depression, anger, sadness, unhappiness. But to put it in a concept, for you to get the context of what I'm saying, is a lot of it comes from you not being able to keep it real with yourself. This is where you get these personality disorders like borderline syndrome, narcissism, anxiety, OCD. It's because there's so much trapped. Like, shout out to No Weirdos Allowed. That's Buddha. Hey, Buddha. You mentioned chakras. Now, if you want to go into the spiritual realm of it, chakras is levels of, they show your spine. You see it on your spine, where it holds a lot of your thoughts, your nerves, your feelings. So now the lower chakra is where all the brute force of your physical pelvic region holds. So he mentioned in a comment that it holds a lot of trauma. I really like that he said that. So you as the individual have to elevate your chakras. You have to elevate those traumatic situations that's going on. And it's a process, right? So your unconscious holds all of that. So we can call the unconscious somewhat like a lower chakra. But it's not really a lower chakra. You have to elevate that unconscious to the point of where it needs to be, so it could blend with the subconscious and the conscious, right? Let's see if this shrimp is ready. Nope, it's not ready yet. Hold on, y'all. I have to flip it. Nice and tangy. It is. Needs about 5 more minutes. I don't like my shrimp too tough, but I don't like it too rubbery either. Still has that slight slimy feel to it. Hold on, y'all. Oh, I hate when that happens because I lose my train of thought. I get so passionate when I talk, and then sometimes I forget where I be at. Well, basically what I'm trying to say is, if you don't tap into your unconscious correctly, like if you're okay, so we're gonna do it one at a time. If you're not in tune with your unconscious, sometimes it turns into repressed thoughts, right? Repressed feelings, regression. So when you go to sleep, you might have bad nightmares. You might see yourself either being the villain in the dream, where you're trying to attack a person, or the person is trying to attack you. A lot of that deals with the unconscious mind. There's things that is unsettled there. You could be having a lot of worry. You could be trying to avoid your past. You could be trying not to think about certain things that happened to you. All of these kind of like haunt you. Now, unconscious, there are people that live only there. They don't want to come up to the surface. They don't want to come up to the forefront. They stay in the unconscious on a constant basis. That's where you may see like your magicians or your religious fanatics, where they're constantly thinking that everything is unseen and they don't want to be here. Sometimes, I don't want to say it's bad, but then sometimes it can become a problem, because when there's time to deal with the real reality of what's happening in front of them, they're like, oh, you don't have to pay your light bill. You're going to be fine. Some ghost is going to come pay it for you, right? And you're like, no, I need to go get a job. And they're like, no, you don't need no food and water. just hum, and the humming will fill your belly, and next thing you know, you get unalived because you didn't feed yourself. Those are people that live completely in the unconscious mind. So that's why it's necessary to be balanced in both. And I know I got a little bit sidetracked. I'm getting back to the persona in a second. Mental illness also triggers those things where they don't want to deal with the reality because it could be too damaging for them. A lot of times that happens with people with personality disorders. Whatever they're dealing with or battling, they don't want to deal with it in the real world. So they make up a persona, a fake person. They live in their archetype. And what happens is they thought that by building a persona, it will protect them from trauma. Like they don't have to deal with what's coming on, like relationships, anything that challenges their emotions. They feel like, okay, well, if I just deal with this situation in the persona, I'll be good. But what happens is they get so used to dealing with people on the persona, they forget that they were supposed to achieve individuation. So when you achieve individuation, you get comfortable in your skin. People can't come around you and make you uncomfortable because of how you look. Like somebody can't come up to me and say, oh, you got on too much makeup, and I fall apart. I'll be like, I love makeup. What's the problem? You see what I'm saying? Because you have to get to the point where you love everything about yourself. Now, I'm not saying a false self now. You got people that will create a false self and then fall in love with the false self. That's the narcissist, right? You got to know there's a boundary, a limit. That's why it's called a line.